Welcome to the Church of Obelisk and to the first tier list video for 731. We'll start with the safe lane, position 1. As with my other tier list videos, this is heavily based on stats. I've looked at stats from Spectral Stats, from DotA Pro Tracker, from DotA Buff, as well as from DotA Plus, to give you a list of heroes that have both high win rates and high pick rates in the higher tiers, and of course the reverse in the lower tiers. This list is based primarily around high level play, so divine games, immortal games, as well as like high immortal games that you find on DotA Pro Tracker. Because in high level games balance just matters a lot more. If you're sitting at 2k, you can make whatever hero you want work, and it's just about being familiar with the hero. But as soon as you get to like 4k plus, balance really starts to matter quite a bit. However, I will take into account lower level play as well to some extent, and I'll point out when there are some discrepancies where heroes are much better at higher or lower levels. It is also all about pub games, not about competitive play. So without further ado, let's jump into the S tier. S tier is heroes that are just overpowered, just way above the rest of the heroes, and the only hero that really stands out here is Tony, also known as Tiny. He's got huge pick rates, huge win rates. He's doing well across all the brackets. He's not doing quite as well down there, but still doing fine. So this is a hero that you can basically always pick up as a carry. And there were a couple of changes to Tiny in 731 as well as in the B patch. But really the main reason Tiny is so much stronger now as a carry is that he now gets his Aghanim shard at minute 15, which is a huge upgrade to him, allows him to farm much better as well as fighting better early on. And this is basically why the hero is overpowered right now. So I would definitely expect him to get nerfed in the next patch. Now we go to the A tier. These are heroes that are above average, that have strong win rates as well as solid pick rates, or in some cases very high win rates but not so high pick rates. So first of all, we have Huskar. Huskar is probably even stronger as a mid hero, but he works just fine as a carry. He's incredibly powerful right now. He got some nice buffs in 731. He fits quite well into the meta right now, so he's just amazing. If you play this hero, of course, you have to be very aggressive, and you tend to want to end games early. This is why he's not quite as strong at lower tiers, because their games tend to drag on longer. But as soon as we get to Archon, he already has huge win rates, and even down here it's still very solid. Next up we have Lone Druid, one of my personal favorites. He's got a bunch of free armor on his Spirit Link now, as well as getting a big buff to his base damage on the Spirit Bear. So that's what made the hero super powerful in 731. He got a bit of a nerf in 731B. Without that, he probably would be even an S tier hero. But he's still very, very strong and has solid win rates across the board. And he tends to be a hero that does a little bit better in high-level games, similar to Huskar, is a hero that tends to want to end games early. And he's also not that easy to play. But if you know how to play this hero, he can be extremely powerful. Next up, we have Wraith King, who is not that hard to play, and it's just super solid. He wasn't really changed very much in 731, so he's just still one of the best carries. And now that you can get Aghanim shard even earlier, that's also nice. If you're playing against the mana burning heroes, you can now get your shard at minute 15. So this hero is just super solid. CK got buffed quite a bit in 731, which is why he's up here in the A tier. Particularly, he's got the bonus damage now on Chaos Strike against creeps, which allows him to just lane even more smoothly. It allows him to farm better, and this just makes the hero so much nicer as a carry, because the problem with CK is that he doesn't farm as fast, and this change really changes that around. And he's not the fastest farmer, obviously, even with that change, but now it's good enough. And if you do manage to get farm, this hero scales amazingly well, because you have these hugely powerful illusions that deal 100% damage. These are also super mobile, because you have Reality Rift, and you get crit, which also works for illusions. So this hero scales amazing, and it's just so good at hunting down these squishy ranged heroes. You can burst any support, even a ranged carry like a Drow, for example, just completely melts It's if you just get on top of her just once. This hero is quite strong. Next up, we have TA, who can be played both as a mid and a carry. Both playstyles are strong. If you play her as a carry, you're playing around the agonyms quite a bit. And this allows you to have huge mobility around the map. And of course, this hero can farm well and does quite a bit of damage. She doesn't like scale super hard compared to some carries, but it's strong enough, and with all that global mobility, she can be a powerful carry, but she's not necessarily that easy to play. So in lower levels, she's gonna fall off. But if you're good on this hero, you can definitely make her work as a carry. And then we have Ricky, who just works really well with the new diffusion blades. So it's just a nice tempo carry. You get like an over corrosion together with obviously treads. They get a diffu and they can just hunt people down. Very, very powerful. Next we have DotA. She's not changed very much compared to last patch, and she was a great carry last patch. She's still a great carry now. Just obviously huge scaling carry. You farm very well innately, and you'll get super tanky. So it's just a very solid hero. Then we have Ursa, who tends to have two distinct playstyles in this patch. Either you can just go for the very cheap diffu and be a super powerful tempo carry. You could take Roshan, obviously, with this hero, and then you can make a lot of stuff happen in the mid game. Or alternately, you can go for Battle Fury and actually farm quite well. And then you can scale a little bit better on this hero. But either playstyle is quite powerful, which is why Ursa is here in the A tier. Then we have Lycan, who's a hero that not typically played as a carry, but you can play him as a carry. So he's very low pick rate as a carry, but super solid win rate. The hero is just very powerful right now. And the reason for that is that you have these changes to the jungle creep. You have a lot more valid targets for Helm of Dominator now. And for example, you have this little Harpy scout that now gives you 1800 flying vision. If you dominate her, she's gonna have infinite mana sustain, and she can even like move around at hasted movement speed in the ultimate. Or you just have a variety of other creeps that have lots of different abilities. So Helm of Dominator is just much stronger because of that. You might think, okay, Summon Wolves actually has the damage reduced, so Lycan has actually been nerfed, but that's only a compensation for the fact that Wolves now do more damage to heroes. So previously, Wolves and other summons or creeps that did normal or basic attack damage did only 80% damage against heroes, but now they do full damage. And so the damage up against heroes should be about the same. This hero is very tempo based. He does not scale well into the late game at all, which is also why he's more typically played as an offlaner or as a mid. And this is also why he tends to fall off in the lower tiers. So if you're below like 3k, I wouldn't play this hero at all. Arc Warden actually a super solid carry right now. A lot of people thought the change to Tempest Double, that it now does 50% less damage when it's away from Set himself, would be a huge nerf, but actually it's fine. And in fact, it sort of encourages like a more aggressive playstyle with Arc Warden that's not focused as much on just split pushing and just being super greedy with the double. You got some compensating buffs for that. You get extra damage on Spark Wraith, you get more agi gain, and the hero is just fine. It's you don't have to rely only on split pushing to win with the hero. You can actually fight quite well with having the clone and your hero in the fight just basically do double damage what a normal hero would do, and now with the plus 0.5 agi gain, you actually have a pretty good attributes gain. And yeah, the hero is just very solid. It's got good win rates. It's not the easiest to play, obviously, but it's not incredibly hard, and tends to have good win rates across all the brackets. Juggernaut is just a very basic, solid carry. He's doing quite well in all the brackets, but his win rates are not super high, so he's towards the end of A tier. And rounding out the A tier, we've got Bloodseeker. Very aggressive carry. You can obviously also play him in other roles, but as carry he does quite well. He's not picked that much as a carry and not that much in general, but he's got fairly decent win rates, and he tends to do even better in higher tiers. So in immortal level pubs, his win rates are even better, and he's just a nice aggressive carry. Now we go over to the B tier. These are heroes that are sort of the middle of the pack. They're balanced. They have maybe a little bit higher than 50% win rate but low pick rate, or a little bit below 50% but high pick rate. The first one is going to be Drow. She's just a pretty solid carry, obviously super squishy, but if you can protect her, she can do quite well. Shadow Fiend is more commonly known as a mid laner, but he can also work decently well as a carry. So what you often see as a carry is that you don't actually use Shadow Rays. Instead, you start with Presence of the Dark Lord, which is an amazing level 1 ability. It's 4 armor reduction, so you're just going to do a huge amount of right-click damage, as is your lane support. And then you just max out Necromastery, it's going to give you a huge amount of right-click damage. And then you just build sort of normal right-click items, and it actually works quite well. But it's not like super broken or anything, so this is why he's in B tier. Then we've got Slark, who's still got a fairly high pick rate. His win rate is not the greatest. It's like a little bit below 50% in most of these brackets. So if you like Slark, you can still pick him, but he's not that powerful. Then we've got a Sniper, who sort of plays out kind of similar to a Safe Lane Shadow Fiend, and he's actually fine in this patch. He's got a bunch of buffs in the past, and you know, he's not the greatest, but he's fine. And he tends to do even better in lower tiers because he's a fairly basic hero, and as long as people don't really know how to initiate on you, which is the case in the lower brackets typically, he does even better. But yeah, he's just like a middle of the pack kind of hero. We've got Weaver. He used to be a bit stronger, got some nerfs, but he's still a decent carry. Naga got some changes to how her Riptide works. So the initial rework in 731 made her quite a bit weaker, but now they fixed that in 731B, and you know, she's still a fine carry, farms super fast, but can have some problems in team fights against lineups that have a lot of AoE. Our next hero is going to be Phantom Lancer, very similar hero to Naga. I think his win rate is a little bit lower, but he's picked slightly more, so you know, he's about the similar level as Naga in terms of power level. He doesn't farm as fast, but on the other hand, he scales better than Naga. The changes to diff are a bit of a double-edged sword for Phantom Lancer, because you do get it earlier, so you can start fighting a little bit earlier if you have to. You still don't want to fight with just a Diffu, but Diffu also now gives you less stats and less damage on illusions, which of course is a problem for Phantom Lancer. So this hero just sort of in the middle of the pack. Then we have Morphling, who has a big problem that the E-Blade is now much worse on him, but you can still just buy regular carry items, and this hero is obviously super flexible because you can just take over any enemies, but because that is also very hard to play, and yeah, that's why his win rate is not the highest. But if you're a good Morphling player, you can keep playing Morphling. Next we have Alchemist, who actually has a pretty good win rate, but his pick rate is very low, so I can't really justify putting him higher than B tier. The hero that farms super fast and just comes online early. Then we've got Lifestealer, solid laner, and good at you know, fighting early-ish. It doesn't farm as fast as some of the other carries, and he tends to want to end games in the mid game, but you know, he's just a solid carry on the whole. Similar thing for Faceless Void. He of course scales a bit harder, he's got better team fight, but he's just sort of in the middle of the pack. He doesn't have the greatest win rates. Razor is an interesting carry. He's a super strong laner, in particular in certain matches where he's playing against slower melee offlaners like Titlander, for example. So you can dominate his lane, and then he's got a strong team fight. He's also strong against the slower melee carries that you can just suck dry with Static Link. And The way you usually build Razor is just to go for BKB, you go for Refresher, and then you get this double ultimate at super strong timing, and then you want to try to end the game in the mid game, because you don't scale as well as some other carries. Luna is kind of a basic carry. She farms well, she has some magic damage in addition to physical damage, and she scales well as well, so there's nothing wrong with her. She just doesn't have anything that particularly stands out to her, makes her particularly strong in this patch, so she's just somewhere in the B tier here. Then rounding out the B tier, we have Monkey King, who's a bit of a situational carry. In some matchups he can do really well. Sort of similar heroes that Razor counters, Monkey King also counters. Monkey King has a strong team fight as well. You get some scouting information from jumping in trees and such. So he's fine, but his win rates tend to be not the greatest, even though he's picked a decent amount. So I put him here at the bottom of the B tier. C tier heroes that are more situational. They can still be strong in particular lineups or against particular opponents, but in general you should probably avoid these heroes unless you really like them or it's a really good game for them. First up we have Klinks, who, I don't know, just seems like an inferior version of these other range carries. If you want to play Klinks, instead just play this like a Drow Ranger or like a Sniper, Weaver, and one of these heroes. You're probably going to have a better time. Then we've got Terrorblade, who again is kind of like an inferior version of heroes up there. Like Naga is just like a better version of TB most of the time. Just farms a bit better right now, and Terrorblade, he's got his stats nerfed quite a bit. He lost in the last couple of patches, he lost like one agi game, which is huge on an Illu hero. So I would generally avoid playing him. Next we've got Bristleback, who just works better as an offlaner. You can play him as a carry, but it's a bit of a gamble. You kind of have to end the game early if you play Bristleback. Anti-Mage is a hero that is picked quite a lot recently, but his win rate is just not there. He is just losing more games than he wins in every skill bracket, so I would stay away from him right now. Sven just is not a particularly exciting hero right now. His win rate's not great. And yeah, I would avoid him. He can still do well in certain matchups, like if you're playing against these kind of zoo heroes, like you're playing against like Lycan or Beastmaster, stuff like that. Sven can do quite well, but there's other heroes who do that even better, so I would avoid him. Io, just like don't play him as a carry. He's great as a support, but don't play him as a carry. It just doesn't work particularly well these days. Gyrocopter tends to have pretty low win rates. Especially in the Immortal bracket, he just gets completely dumpstered, so I avoid this hero. Other better carries. PA is, I guess, like a fun carry to play, but he just doesn't have the highest win rates, so again, I would avoid her, pick other heroes instead. Like Ricky is probably just a better version of PA right now. Troll just doesn't really have anything in particular going for him. He's a good laner, obviously, but he has trouble finishing games, and there's other heroes that scale better. Speaking of scaling better, we've got Spectre, obviously a super strong late game carry, but she actually needs to get there, and even in the lower brackets, she's like barely above 50%, and that indicates a terrible Spectre patch. Yeah, this hero just does worse the higher you go up in MMR, and I would generally avoid playing Spectre in this patch. And lastly, with the D tier, these are heroes that you just absolutely not pick as carries. They just don't work in that role particularly well. They work fine in other roles, but not as carries. Like Ember Spirit, he's a fine mid laner. Just don't pick him as carry. Same for Kunkka. And Primal Beast, you should play him as an offlaner. In the carry role, he just doesn't scale enough to do anything. Okay, so that's my overview of the state of the meta for the carry role. More tier lists to come for this patch, so do subscribe if you enjoy this kind of content. And I've put up some videos here that might interest you on the screen, so do click on those, and all is willing, I'll see you there.